It takes place in Bulgaria. It follows the story of a medical nurse that looks after elderly with dementia. And she's actually a social worker slash medical nurse, and she robs them of their ID cards and sells them on the black market of identity fraud. Basically, it's about her encounter with one elderly man who kind of awakens her conscience, I guess, and it's about that. It's a moral tale of sorts that goes badly for everyone. I wanted to talk about, I guess, the rage that underlies an experience when you've compromised your integrity too much as a human being, really. And the void inside that leaves you with when you've kind of walked too far, against yourself in a way, in order to survive. It's not difficult to find stories that reflect that emotion in Bulgaria, unfortunately. I'd heard about some poor people selling voluntarily their ID cards for a bit of cash because they were really cynical that a piece of plastic doesn't give them anything, doesn't give them protection from the state in any case. So why not just sell it and make a bit of cash? And that touched me deeply, basically, that that you're left with sort of, I saw it even as a metaphor for identity, sort of the piece of paper that you're left with your name. It goes for sale. The film deals with the causes and the effects of that, actually. It doesn't deal with a story that is about communism. It's the aftermath and the effect on my generation that are now between 30 and 40, the X generation as we call them. And often you find these people who had hopes and they were basically not met in any way. I would like to think for the young people that are now in their 20s, things would be different, but for my generation it produced a lot of cynicism, actually, and a lot of resentment, and people often, in order to survive, sort of did compromises with themselves, and out of cynicism, out of disbelief that doing the right thing would lead to any change. So they're like, well, I might as well just do the wrong thing, and look after my immediate self-interest. It's a lot of corruption, a lot of sort of shaky moral system, and the judiciary system doesn't work. And I think that's like the immunity of a country. When that doesn't work, nothing works. So that's the big trouble, really. You can get away with murder, and people do. It's enough to have the cash to pay for it, to bail yourself out. It was really an emergency for me to leave, basically, because I saw no real opportunity to develop intellectually, culturally, just in any shape or form. And I just I left for those reasons more than financial reasons, actually. I was not an economic immigrant. I was more of a, I just saw no place for development, really. And I'm afraid to say it's very much the case still for a lot of people in the country. And back then was just more dangerous in terms of contract killings were happening on the streets. Now it's more behind doors, just because the people that used to do the contract killings now are like very wealthy and are in politics. So now they just do it differently. But it's still the same. I lived in France for about 5 years, and then I moved to England, where I lived for about 14 years, where I did my studies, went to the National Film and Television School there, and now I'm back in Bulgaria, actually, for better or worse, but I'll have a go at being back and telling stories that I believe are important and urgent, and I think as an artist you have something to something more to rub against, in a climate like that. As a Rolling Stone, European Rolling Stone. I've traveled a lot, basically. I mean, apart from England and France, I've traveled, I think, up to my 23rd year. Maybe I've traveled 30 or 35 countries, and since then more. So I'm a bit of a nomad really at Seoul. Yeah. And I think the world has become that, a much smaller place now, so